taste, it can be, or hearing, auditory. What we call as Panchendriya, right? So based on our experiences, we know something, and that way of establishing knowledge is pratyaksha praman. Anumana, as I said you, is inferring. Mostly science, knowledge in science is established like that. That if X happens, then if X and Y are related in a certain way, then we can say that Y can be predicted, Y can be inferred. That is the kind of way by which knowledge gets established, or inferring something. I give you the example that if I have seen outside when I go that there is a lot of water outside, then I can predict that I can infer that it must have rained, right? Because everywhere there is water. I am not seeing the rain directly, but I'm inferring that the water which is present everywhere is because of rain. That is the kind of procedure by which you establish knowledge. Let me proceed further with the remaining three. Yeah. Let me go for presentation. Share. Fine. Yeah. I don't know whether you are able to see this. It has not come on yet. Yeah. Where is the? It is not appearing. Right. See, these are the other ways of establishing knowledge. I hope you are seeing it. Are you seeing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is what is pratyaksha pramana. You are seeing it, right? Shabda is testimony, and you know that legal knowledge, much of legal knowledge in law, for example, is based on what is written in the books, the rules, the legislations, etc. So legal knowledge is a shabda, the testimonial presentation. So even if I have not seen an atom, my knowing that atom is the smallest particle of matter is basically based on the books. The textbook says that, my teacher says that. So some established authority, if they are saying something, then that is considered as knowledge. Upamana is comparison. A and B are similar. A behaves like this, and so B also must be behaving in the same way. So this is upamana, that is making a comparison. Arthapatti is slightly different. For example, based on two statements, when a third statement is added, both of them become true. For example, if I am showing something and say this is gold, and I am also saying this is not gold. Now both these sentences cannot be, or statements cannot be true. Either it has to be gold or it is not gold. So when is it that this becomes a knowledge? When we add a third statement that this appears gold. C is this appears gold. Now both first and second can be meaningful, or these statements can be true. This is gold, this is not gold, and this appears gold. That is. So that third statement, when added, becomes completes the meaning of the earlier two statements. That is the and anupalabdhi is perception of non-existence of a thing. In fact, India is known for the giving zero as a concept to the world, and zero is actually non-existence of something. It is not present. That concept could have come from India primarily because of the way of anupalabdhi, creation of knowledge, when where perception of the non-existence of a thing is true. That is the okay. Now let us come to research, and at the end of research, we are coming out with knowledge. Any research that you take, you are coming out with knowledge, and usually it is in the form of a generalization. For example, an inference is a generalization, and a generalization has to collect at least two variables. There cannot be a generalization if there are no at least two variables. It is also a statement of relationship. A statement of relationship, and a relationship can be of more than one type. That I come to a little later. How is generalization different from a concept, for example? I said earlier, one kind of declarative knowledge is the conceptual knowledge, right? You remember the three types of declarative knowledge: factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, and procedural knowledge. And how is a concept then is different from a generalization? What do you think? How does concept concept, how is it different from a generalization? Okay, now let me clarify that the concept and generalization are different, because concept actually has five characteristics or five elements. You may call them as elements of a concept. A concept has a name. For example, if we say that bird is a concept or table is a concept, then the name table or the name bird represents the name of the concept. Second element is a concept has examples, like whether it is bird or table, both of them or any other concept have examples. And these examples are instances of manifestation of the concept. The concept is present in this example. A particular table, when you show and you say this is table, you are actually showing the example of a table, not the concept table. That is the second element. And the third element of a concept is it has attributes. A concept has attributes. For example, if bird is the concept, it has wings, it has a beak. They are all attributes of the concept bird. Similarly, table. Table, if you say that the material with which it is made, whether it is wood or steel or plastic, that is one attribute of a table. Every table has a certain height, so that is a second attribute. So, I mean, every concept then will have attributes. Whichever concept you take, it has attributes. Now, the fourth element is the attribute value. In a particular example, the attribute is present at a particular value. It has a certain value. For example, if I'm showing a particular table and where I'm saying that it has height, that height also is specific to that table. It may be 3 feet tall, or it may be 2 feet tall, or it may be 2.5 feet tall. That 2.5 feet, 2 feet, or 3 feet is the value of that attribute height. So similarly, it is made up of some material, and steel or wood or plastic is the value of that attribute. It is made up of some material. So that is the fourth characteristic. If you look at concepts carefully, each of these attributes actually is necessary to make a concept a concept. If these attributes are, I mean, if these elements are not there, then we may not consider that as a concept. That is something which we may have to remember. Whereas generalization is different because it is connecting two concepts. For example, when you heat a metal, it expands. When you heat a metal, it expands. Yes, somebody is speaking. Yeah, you want to ask something, Vaishnavi madam? Something you
Yeah.
want to ask, Kiran? Kiran, you wanted to ask something?
ಇದ್ದಲ್ಲ ಇವ್ರು ಬಿದ್ದಾರ ನಾ ಹಿಂದ ನಾನಾದಿನಿ
I think somebody's mic is on. Can you, I mean, mute it, please?
ನಮ್ ಗಿರೀಶ್ ಪಾಟೀಲ್ PS ಆದ
Can you
ಅವ್ನ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ
mute? Somebody is, okay. Thank you. Oh. Okay. A generalization actually connects two concepts, at least two concepts. As I said, when you apply heat to metal, it expands. So there are essentially three concepts in this generalization. It is a generalization, right? The first concept that we are using is heat. When you apply heat is a concept. When to a matter, to a metal is a concept, and expansion is a concept. So a generalization is actually connecting more than two or more concepts. So that is how a generalization is different from a concept. Now, the question is how the generalizations behave. Like, for example, a generalization can be arrived at from it is a statement of relationship of concept between concepts, and the relationship can be of two types. The relationship which is causative relationship, A causes B, A is B. That is one kind of relationship which is called causal or causative relationship, and another kind of relationship is concomitant relationship. A and B are happening together, they are simultaneously occurring. So this is another kind of relationship that we find which leads to a statement of generalization. Now, when we say research process is a process of establishing knowledge, making an assertion, or inferring a relationship. All the researches that we have discussed earlier, in one form or the other, they are establishing knowledge, or they are making an assertion, or they are inferring a relationship. Whatever we think, we will be able to analyze which of this is present in that particular research. So that is how we can define a research. And relationship, again, I said causal or correlational or related to one another. Now the question, are there different types of research? This is another question that we come across. Are there different types of research? Yes, of course, there are different types of researches. Two classifications I have given here. One is classifying research as basic, applied, and action research. And the other, classifying research as quantitative and qualitative. I would stop my sharing here, come back to you. Can you tell me what is the difference between these three: basic, applied, and action research, or at least basic and applied? What is the difference? Let me ask Jayana sir, because he has been very active in this session. Jayana sir, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Can you tell me how these two are different, basic and applied research?
Sir, basic research maybe it's a type of scientific inquiry, sir.
Correct.
Aimed at expanding knowledge, maybe.
Correct. Building
And
theory.
so, what is the
And applied?
applied is something that is focused on solving practical and real world problems, sir.
Okay. And the research that the research which you have done,
yes,
is
sir.
it applied or basic?
Sir, that is applied, sir, because I have some applications, sir.
Good. We did discuss that earlier. Yeah, your research study has an application, so it is an applied research. Yes, correct.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
okay.
sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I said, see, action research is one where a practitioner is finding an answer to his or her problem. Say, for example, you are all working in higher education institutions, colleges or universities, right? Now, in your teaching of your subject, suppose you are facing a certain problem, and if you are doing research to solve that problem for your own class, you don't want to make any generalization. You do not want to make any creation of knowledge. You want to solve a problem which you are facing, and through an action, you want to solve it. By doing something, you want to solve it. And that kind of research is called action research. Action research also is called practitioner's research. The research done by a practitioner. That is what is action research. So these are the three classifications: basic research, applied research, and action research. The other classification I said is quantitative and qualitative. Achyutananda is here, right? Achyutananda sir, can you tell me how would you differentiate quantitative research from qualitative research?
I think the qualitative research maybe the applications,
Okay,
in what way it can be applied,
okay,
and the percentage of the ratio of the success,
yeah,
the number of beneficiaries that,
okay,
that may be benefited by that research.
okay, okay. Thank you. Vinay Kumar, are you there? Vinay Kumar, sir? Vinay Kumar?
Sir, can I add something, sir?
Yes, yes, please, please.
Yeah, it may be the method of collecting and analyzing numerical data, maybe.
Is quantitative.
Yes, sir.
Correct. You're right. Absolutely correct. Actually, the data collected is in the form of numbers, quantitative. Then it is quantitative research, or if it represents some number or which can be represented through number. Whereas qualitative research is something which is non-quantitative. You can quantify a qualitative data, but you will not be able to do the other way around. A qualitative data, for example, I've given you a statement and asked, do you agree, strongly agree, undecided, disagree, and strongly disagree? You are supposed to show your reaction or response on a 5-point scale. So actually, I'm asking you in terms of words. Do you agree? Agree is a word, is quality, is not quantity, right? So what I can do as a researcher, after collecting that qualitative data, I can convert it into number. For example, strongly disagree, if I given 0, then strongly agree becomes 5. So it becomes a 5-point scale. Strongly agree, undecided, disagree, strongly disagree. So you have seen it in many surveys. They'll use either 3-point scale, yes, don't know, no. It is a 3-point scale, or it may be a 5-point scale. Okay, that is how surveys are conducted. Many of these Google survey forms use such a what is that, data collection procedure. So this is another. Let me show you specifically how do they differ from each other in the sense how is applied research different from action research, and how is qualitative research different from quantitative. I mean basic research and applied research, and qualitative and quantitative. Let me come to the first one. Just a minute. Are you able to see the slide? Are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Research and applied research, they differ in some form, and the difference has been stated in terms of meaning, nature, utility, concern with, and goal. These are the basis of comparison, because when you compare two things, there must be some basis on which you are comparing it. So the basis which are used for comparison are meaning, nature, utility, concerned with, and goal. Let us first take the meaning. Basic research refers to the study that is aimed at expanding the existing base of scientific knowledge. That is the basic research. That is how, after that research work, you come out with a law or you come out with a theory, which is actually not usually done in a PhD work. You are not doing a basic research in a PhD work, because it takes large number of data, it takes longer duration of time, etc. Whereas most of the researches that we do in the form of PhD are applied researches, and what it means is applied research is the research that is designed to specific practical problems or answer questions. That is the meaning of applied research. The nature, if basic research is theoretical by nature, whereas applied research is practical by nature. And what is the use or utility of these researches? The basic research is universally applicable. Universally applicable. A theory is universally applicable. It is not applicable only to one district or one state or one country. It is universally applicable. Whereas applied research has limited applications. It is not universally applicable, but it has certain limitations in terms of its applicability or utility. Now, what is it concerned with? The basic research is concerned with developing scientific knowledge and predictions. That is why theory. Once you have a theory, then you will be able to predict something also. Not only that it gives scientific knowledge, it also can be used for predicting. Whereas applied research is for developing technology and techniques. That is the application or concern with developing technology or techniques. And what is the goal? Goal of basic research is to add some knowledge to the existing one. Whereas applied research is to find solution for the problem at hand. So these are the ways in which these two researches are different. Now the quantitative and qualitative, there is a difference again. Qualitative research in terms of purpose is trying to answer why questions. Qualitative research answers why questions. Why is it that some students are not regularly attending class? Why? If you want an answer for that, then you will normally do a qualitative research because you are trying to find out reason why of something. And whereas quantitative research, its purpose is how many, how much, how many and how much, whereas the numbers, this when it comes into picture, you require a quantitative research. What is the data type? What kind of information is collected? In qualitative research, it is in terms of observation, symbols, and words. I told you that strongly agree. They are not, they are words. So essentially the data is in form of words and agreement to words. Whereas in quantitative research, it is numbers or statistical result. That is the data type. Whereas the approach when it comes to qualitative research is observation and interpretation. Observe and interpret. You observe something and interpret that. That is the method used for or approach used for qualitative research. Whereas in quantitative, you are measuring and testing. That is the importance of laboratory, because laboratory is required largely for measurement and testing. That is the thing. Even otherwise, the quantitative research can be done in psychology also. We have one friend who is having an education background. So he's steady. He would have done some measurement. He would have done some testing. So there also it is possible, but largely the measurement and testing is the approach. Whereas analysis, when it comes to how do you analyze the data, etc., grouping of common data. That is when you do 5 case studies, you are grouping the similarities between these cases and then coming out with some kind of a statement of generalization. Whereas in quantitative research, it is use of statistical analysis. Whatever be the analysis, whether you are finding the central tendency in terms of mean, median, mode, or you are finding out the variability in scores in terms of standard deviation, quartile deviation, or range of scores, or you are conducting a comparison test like the t-test or the chi-square test or the f-test. You are using statistical analysis for the purpose of analyzing the data. So this is the main difference between these two types of research. Now, let us quickly remember the research process. You know that when you want to take up a quantitative research study or a qualitative research study, this mostly applies to scientific approach, the approach of science. You are beginning with defining the problem, developing an approach to the problem, formulating a research design. That how will I address this problem? How will I collect the data? So formulating a research design, doing field work or collecting data. It need not be field work, it can be lab work also, but collecting data. Preparing and analyzing the data. And preparing here means converting numerals into, words into numerals, or organizing the quantitative data into a form, which is something like the Excel spreadsheet or whatever. They're preparing the data and analyzing the data. using the statistical procedures to analyze the data, or even mathematical procedures. Preparing and presenting the report. So these are the main steps. I mean, that is how a research gets done. Please remember, this is the process of verification. This is the process of creation of knowledge in terms of scientific knowledge. So if you have to establish scientific knowledge, you will have to follow this procedure. That is the reason why the process is important. Now, origin of a research idea. How did you go about actually? How did you find out that you have to do this particular research work? Let me begin with Soumya Irappa madam. Soumya madam, are you there? Soumya madam, Soumya Irappa. Soumya madam, are you present? Okay, Swami, Dr. Swami is here, right? Dr. Swami?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Dr. Swami, what was the topic you said of your research work?
Sir, use of career information resources and services of the public libraries in Karnataka, sir.
Fine, fine. How did you find out that you should do research on this? How did you decide?
Sir,
How did you decide this topic?
to identify the career information resource of advocate of library resource and collection, sir.
No, why did you decide that you have to do your research on this topic only?
ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಲೈಬ್ರರೀಸ್ ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆರಿಯರ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಒಂದು ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರ್ತಿದೆ ಸರ್. ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಲೈಬ್ರರಿ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಉದ್ದೇಶಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ ಸರ್.
Okay, okay. That means you found out there is a gap of information, knowledge, etc., and hence you decided you should work on it. Correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Vinay Kumar, sir.
Sir. Sir, by referring research articles, sir, if there is any gap, so we found a large gaps in research papers. So we try to work out on that things.
Good, good. In fact, this is another way of identifying a research topic. Dr. Vinay Kumar has undertaken a review of related literature, a large number of literature, and he identified gaps. Let us see a little later how these research articles or reports mention about gaps in the which a researcher can work on. You know, that is. Jayana sir, how did you identify the topic of your research?
Yes, sir. I have so interest in organic chemistry, sir. So I want to know how the molecules are going to be interact with each other and how can we form a macromolecule. So after forming the macromolecule, whatever the basic moiety or central moiety you are going to choose, how it affects the how it affects on the like in the medicinal field, sir.
Okay.
So what is the role of the central moiety of the chemical moiety in the medicinal field? How it affects whether it increases say so activity are which are going to be the group are going to be make effect on decreasing the activity. Like I need to study about the SAR structural activity relationship of the molecule with that.
Good.
That's why I chose that.
Essentially, Jayana sir is saying that it is based on his interest in that subject. He was interested to know an answer. So that is why he did, right? Good. So now we have three different ways. See, even though all the three are doing research, all the three, colleagues here, whether it is Dr. Jayana or Dr. Vinay Kumar or Dr. Swami, all the three of them are researchers and doing research. But the way they started, how did they come to that topic is not exactly same. They are different. Any other? Pooja, madam, Pooja, are you there?
Same, sir. Through the gaps which has been reviewed in different articles, we have come to know the topic.
Good, good. In fact, I did hear from some people earlier that my guide suggested this topic. Guide has a certain specialization. What I wanted to tell you is that, say, for example, Jayana, he had an interest in doing research on a certain topic. What happens in our system, in our educational system, what happens is, suppose a student like Dr. Jayana has interest to do research in a particular theme, particular topic. Now he goes to the guide and tells that, okay, I'm going to do research on this topic. It is possible that the guide may agree, okay, this is a good topic, please go ahead, do it. Or the guide also may say, Jayana sir, I'm not competent to guide you on this topic. That is not my area of work. So please, don't do the research in this topic. But if you want to do research on a theme like this, which I am working on, then I can guide you. So this is a practical situation. When we think of how a research idea originates, it can originate in so many different ways. Prashant wants to say something. Prashant sir, Mallikarjun sir, somebody
Hello,
wants.
sir. Hello.
Yeah, Mallikarjun sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes. Sir.
Do you want to say something?
Sir. Hello.
Yeah, please speak.
ಸರ್ ನಾನೇನು ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಇದಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಬರ್ದಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ ಬರಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಸರ್. ಕನಕದಾಸರ ತತ್ವ ಪದಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೀರ್ತನೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾನವೀಯ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳ ಅಂತ.
ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ ಆ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ನೀವು ಹೇಗೆ ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ?
ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂದಿನ ಆಧುನಿಕ ತಂತ್ರಜ್ಞಾನ ಯುಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಂದಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಳಕೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾನೆ, ಈ ರೀತಿ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಅದನ್ನ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನ ನಾನು ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡೀನಿ ಸರ್.
ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ಈ ರೀತಿ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು, ಈ ರೀತಿ ಇದ್ರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಅಂತ, ಹೌದಾ?
ಹೌದು ಸರ್.
ಅದರ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ.
ಡಿಸೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಸರ್.
I think this is another way of identification of a research topic. It is the experience of an individual. What the individual has experienced. Say, for example, as teachers in higher education, if you have experienced that the students are not attentive, if you do not use certain ways of teaching, they are not attentive, then it is your experience which tells you that you can try to address this challenge. This is a challenge for a teacher, and you can try to address this challenge. Thank you, Mallikarjun sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Shalini madam, you want to say something?
No, sir. Sorry.
Okay. Because I saw that your mic was open, so.
Sir, can I?
Okay. Yeah, please. Please.
Yes, sir. So my research, the topic is totally different because I belongs to that area, Andhra Pradesh. So my research supervisor belongs to molecular biologist. He's not a yoga background. So he knows that problem, that area. People approached him. So please start research here on yoga management. So, sir, does he know the proper what yoga therapy should, how it will be work? In the meanwhile, I was joined in SURC University in Bangalore. So, the language issues, at the same time, I know the local area, everything. So, I have taken the topic and it was very, very helpful to me also. And guidance, what you suggested that like it's not my area. But if you do, you are interested, please go ahead. I will give the support back of you. So this is wonderful experience to me to work with such a like a very guide. Actually, he's like a godfather to me.
I know. Shashikala madam, you are lucky. It is very difficult to get guides like that. Every guide has a certain area of specialization. Yes. They want to work in certain areas of that discipline. So indirectly or directly, they may suggest to the student that please take up a research on this area. I'll be able to guide you, etc., etc. But you are lucky, even though the area of the guide was different, that the guide encouraged you to do what you wanted to. Yes, definitely. I'm sure that all of you sooner or later are also going to become research guides. Through time, you will also become research guides and you will be guiding students. So at least that time, please remember that it is better that what Vinay Kumar sir said, you go follow a certain procedure, scientific procedure to find out a topic of research. You encourage the students to do that. Or at least when the student comes and says that I want to do research on this, please don't discourage them. That is the only request that I have to you. Okay, let me proceed further. Okay, origin of a research idea. This is what I was trying to discuss with you. It is a little slow, my internet. It might take some time. Yeah. A research question often begins as more general research idea, usually focusing on some issue, concern, problem in the context of that subject. That is how it begins. You do not start reviewing literature directly because even every discipline has certain sub areas or areas of research. So generally, if a student is interested in a certain area of research, then the student starts reading literature on that area of research. And that is how it proceeds. It's not that if you start reviewing related literature, then the whole subject area cannot be done. I mean, there is so much of literature available in all the different areas. Now, what are the ways? You can see this flow chart will tell you. One is informal observations, first-hand observations that individuals have made. I have seen this. I've actually developed a interest to study this further, like what Jayana sir said. So that is one way. Second-hand information, informal observation is through newspaper, blogs, books, etc. In fact, if you are reading certain literature or blogs or books, and then you find that, okay, that is some area which while reading itself, you develop interest in it, and that is another way of doing it. The practical problems faced in the discipline by people, practitioners, etc. To what extent use of cell phone impairs learning, for example. If you are a teacher, you may be asking this question, how much this use of, because our students are using cell phone a lot, and how much its impact or it has impact on the learning. It is a practical problem, and that problem might lead to a research study. Or it is previous, how can we teach children to read more efficiently? Nowadays, if you go to the school level, there was a report of Pratham saying that fifth standard students were not able to read the textbook of second standard. You can understand. The student has gone to fifth standard, but that student who is in fifth standard is not able to read the textbook which is prescribed in second standard. This is something which is also a practical. And lastly, the previous research which Vinay Kumar sir has said very well. See, I just wanted to bring to your notice that sometimes the articles when you read, they mention to you what is needed as research in this field. For example, here, a longitudinal research study should be conducted using mixed method approach to examine elementary students' achievement emotions and sources of self-efficacy in mathematics. For instance, emotions and sources of self-efficacy could be examined more intensively over longer durations. This particular type of approach would allow researchers to investigate students' emotions and sources of self-efficacy in detail. See, this article is suggesting that in this area, this kind of a work is required. So in each discipline, when you read an article, you may find the person who has written that article as a researcher also has suggested to other researchers that studies of this kind are needed. This is one way of doing identification of gap. This is another that we do normally, that the technology integration and its use require hands-on experience, and a gap exists. This is what the person is saying. Directly saying a gap exists between higher education administrators who see instructional technology as a key element of 21st century learning and faculty who have been slow to adopt and continuously use classroom technology, as is indicated by the continuing needs identified in many research articles. So the researcher is mentioning a gap. So these are the ways by which we can identify a research topic. Now, having decided how to write that topic, how do I write the title of my research study? This is the second. See, the research study should be telling about what, that is the variables of the study. It should also be telling who, what is the target group or target audience or target material, whatever it is. I'll come to that with your example only. Where is it done? In which context it is done, on which plant it is done, for example, on which specimen it is done, for example. These are required in the title, when and why. So these are the elements which are required in a research title. Now let us look at, I'll take only one example to proceed further. Jayana sir, can you repeat your title? Research title?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Synthesis and study of possible biological activities of benzoazole derivatives.
Okay. Now, what is the variable here? What variables are there in this study? One is it biological activity or is it biological activity? Biological activity itself is a variable.
Yes, sir.
Biological activity is a variable. There are different biological activities and that is a variable. It is not a constant. Correct? And
yes, sir. Exactly.
Your study also is talking about the context. Biological activity in? Can you repeat that title again? Biological activity in?
Biological activities of benzoazole derivatives. It's the organic molecule.
Yeah, the derivative which you are mentioning about is the context. In the context of the derivative, the biological activity is being studied. No? So the research title requires to clarify these things. In some there may be target group, whether it is done in Mysore district or people who are belonging to this particular area or people who are what is below poverty line, or you may speak about the target group, or this study is on primary children, it is on college students, things of that kind. So that is the target group. It may have to mention, depending upon the nature of the study. Let me show you a title here. The effects of schooling, family and poverty on children's attainment, potential and confidence. What is not present in this, which is required? What is missing? The effects of schooling, family and poverty on children's attainment, potential and confidence. I have written what should be included in a research title: what, who, where, when, why. What is missing in this title?
Time.
Yeah.
Time.
Okay. Time.
Location, sir. Location.
Does it tell where it is being done? Achyutanandan?
Yes, sir. The respective area of the school.
Yeah, it doesn't say that. One. Second, it doesn't say children of which class, which
Yes, sir,
age
yes,
group. Children is a long continuum. It doesn't say which is it primary children, is it class 5 children, is it 9th standard children? It doesn't say.
Yes, sir.
So
right, sir.
those informations are required in a title like this. There's one more: science teaching and students' attitudes and aspirations. Science teaching and students' attitudes and aspirations. It doesn't say what is the relationship. Is it effect of science teaching? See, it doesn't say. Is science teaching a variable which is influencing students' attitude or aspirations? It doesn't say that. It has to tell. So this cannot be a complete title of a research study. And also, it doesn't say which is the target group. Which target group is used for this study. The third one, home and school influences on academic achievement or well-being. Home and school influences on academic achievement or well-being. What is the problem with this title? Sweta madam? Shweta madam, can you tell again? What is the problem with this title? Home and school influences on academic achievement or well-being. Anyone else? Anyone would like to say?
Home is the problem, sir. Here,
Okay.
that is a variable.
Yeah, achievement or well-being. We cannot say or. Which one? It has to be definitely said whether home and school influences on academic achievement of students of the particular age group, or home and school influences on well-being of students. It cannot be or here. Which one are you taking? This or that? Because they are not alternatives. Academic achievement and well-being are not alternatives. That is the problem. Okay, here, last one. A study of teacher-student interactions in classroom. A study of teacher-student interactions in classroom. Again, it doesn't say the target group.
Target group, sir.
Which group?
Yeah, which study? Which
Which
study?
classroom? Is it, I mean, college classroom? Is it university classroom? Doesn't say that. So one has to remember that the, I mean, title should be complete by itself. It should give meaning to a person who is reading, and then also it should, I mean, the person should be able to understand. So in a way, the title is the briefest abstract of the research study. A good title is a briefest abstract of the research study. That is how we can view it. Okay, let me show you a few more. A study on Indian secularism and its impact. Shining the light on mosquito biology, investigating the physiological and behavioral impacts of artificial nighttime light illumination on disease vectors. Unmasking vulnerability, analyzing consumer susceptibility to dark patterns in e-commerce platforms. Biodegradation of plastics using genetically modified microorganisms, a sustainable approach to plastic waste management. Each of these titles have one or the other problem. The effect of potassium nitrate fertilizer on the pH of soil in the agriculture fields of Kolar district used for the cultivation of tomato crop. People's participation with reference to Tumkuru. Implementation of MGNREGA in rural area. Each of these titles has one or the other difficulty in understanding or comprehending. Okay, so the titling of the research study is a very important thing. That's how you title it. But when you come to the variables, you are deciding which variable to take. A variable is essentially classified in more than one ways. One way of classifying is independent, dependent, extraneous variable. That is one way of classifying. Continuous and discrete variable is another way of classifying. So variables can be classified in more than one way. So a researcher needs to know what type of variable is being selected by the researcher for the study. When you do experiment, for example, experiment, as you know, is a situation where the researcher is manipulating one variable, one value of a variable, and is observing its effect on the dependent variable, the variable which is observed. Say, for example, Jaina sir's study was biological what?
Activities
Activity of
benzoxazole
a
derivative.
particular derivative. Biological activity of a particular derivative. So essentially, the derivative here, that particular derivative is the independent variable and its activity is the dependent variable. Let us classify these variables, independent variables which is manipulated by the researcher. Dependent variable is observed measured, etc. You're observing it or you're measuring it. What happens to it as a result of the change in the independent variable? And extraneous variable also is an independent variable, but the researcher is not interested in it. And in fact, it can have influence on the dependent variable. And usually what happens, the extraneous variables will have to be controlled. See, for example, when a knowledge statement is of this type, that pressure is directly related to volume. Pressure is directly related to volume at normal temperature. When temperature is held constant, so that means effective temperature is controlled, and the other two variables are their relationship is observed. One of them is an independent variable, another is a dependent variable. So that is how the experiments are conducted in science. There are two kinds of experiments which we normally come across. One which is done in the laboratory. Most of the PhD works in science, whether it is botany, zoology. In fact, botany, zoology also can happen outside, not that it has to happen only in the laboratory. Chemistry, physics, they all are done in the laboratory context. So they are called laboratory experiments. There can also be experiments which are field. Say, for example, researches in agriculture, they would be done in the field. They are not done in the laboratory. So the experiments also can be of more than one type. What is the logic of generalization? Now, what we are actually saying is that there are two groups, experimental group and control group, and they are equal to one another. And whatever is found in this particular experimental or control group is equivalent to the sample that I have selected, and the sample that I have selected is equivalent to the population. So whatever happens to the experimental and control groups can be generalized to the sample, and whatever happens to the sample can be generalized to the population. So that is the logic of. So what I have observed in this small little set of things is generalizable to the entire population. That is the meaning. That is how it is seen here. The population is a part of the sample is a part of the population, and this sample becomes a part of the population only if it is selected properly. It is not that just it is subset. It has to represent the population. So what is representative sample? So how do we select a representative sample? In fact, this problem doesn't come in sciences because there is also an assumption that one unit is equivalent to another unit. For example, if I am doing research on a particular chemical, that chemical which I have used and a chemical same name is used by some other researcher, they are equivalent. They are not different. Whereas a student, human beings, when you do work, they are not equivalent. The work which is done on a particular X individual is not necessarily equivalent to Y individual. So that is where the problem comes in sampling. So social sciences have more problems of sampling than the natural sciences or physical sciences. They don't have that kind of a problem of sampling. Very less, even if it is there. So that is what we must remember. As social science researchers, we must give attention to the selection of samples. That is something which I wanted to. So what are the types of sampling? How can we select a sample? Mainly there are two kinds of sampling. One is probability sampling and the other is non-probability sampling. The probability sampling also is called random sampling, whereas non-probability sampling is called judgmental or non-random sampling. So what are the ways with which we can do sampling? In probability sampling, it can be either a simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, or cluster sampling. All of them can represent the population. So that is why probability samples are called representative samples, whereas non-probability samples may not represent the population. They are based on the convenience of the researcher, or the quota allotted to a particular phenomenon, or the judgment of the researcher, or the snowball. Snowball is identification problem. You cannot find that unit of a sample. That is where snowball sample is used. In some areas of research, researchers are using snowball sampling also. Now, what influences generalization? Randomness in selection influences. You have seen after the election there will be this exit poll, and in the media it is actually discussed at length. And many times the politicians will say, we don't agree with this exit poll because this has not followed random selection of sample. The sample size is very small. Now that is what happens. You cannot take the entire population in an exit poll. You have to select a sample only. Now that sample, whether it is representing the voting behavior of all the people who have voted, that is what is questioned. And many of these procedures are very systematically done. That is the reason why many of these exit polls predictions usually come true. But there are also exit polls whose predictions may not come true. And you can attribute why this difference is to the sample selection, how they have selected the sample. And that is what is actually affecting the generalization. The generalization they make, X party will win, Y party will win, or X candidate will win, Y candidate will win. That generalization becomes, not true, or true because of the sampling. So that is what we must. And the best sampling, if we can do, it is the census sampling. That means taking all the cases of that population is called census sampling. You know that in India, we are also doing census sampling, census survey. That census survey includes all the people. Nobody is left. Whereas in research, we are not usually following the census survey or census sampling. We are following a random selection of sampling. That is something we must. Data collection, when it comes to, there are two kinds of data that we may deal with to make our generalization or make our knowledge statement. And one kind is called the primary data, where directly you have obtained the data from the source itself. The other is called secondary data. It is reported somewhere else. Some other, say for example, the 5-year plan report certain data, or statistical surveys report certain data. So that data is used by the researcher as the source. So that is a secondary data. The researcher has not collected the data. That is the. So one may have to remember that the data itself also are of primary and secondary type. And what kind of tools are used? Quantitative researchers use certain tools. Qualitative researchers use certain other types of tools. The quantitative researchers use questionnaire, opinionaire, rating scale, checklist, interview, focus group discussion, tests, observation, simulation, etc. All these are used by quantitative researchers, whereas the qualitative researchers use focus groups, in-depth individual interview, observation, or document analysis. Now, observation, when we take, it has multiple possibilities. Observation itself has multiple, and there are different types also. One classification of observation is participant versus non-participant. Say, for example, if I want to study the behavior of students in a residential institution, that means I'm going to their hostel to study them. One is I'm visiting the hostel and observing them. That is non-participant observation. The participant observation will be, I also will enroll myself as an inmate of that hostel, so that other hostel inmates think that I'm a hostel inmate itself. They don't see me as a researcher. And I'm collecting my data as while living in the hostel. So that is the participant observation. many anthropologists, sociologists use this kind of procedure for observation. In fact, there is a famous book by on coming of age in Samoa. That is the title of that book, in which this researcher, she lived in the tribe in Samoa. She lived in, and all her observations were made. Her name is Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead did a fantastic anthropological study, and that study is quoted in many places. That is participant observation. Obtrusive, unobtrusive. Obtrusive means interfering, like when I take a video camera and go to a place and do the video recording, those people whom you are recording, they become conscious. It is obtrusive. Their behavior will be different. Say, for example, in your case itself, suppose we are told that, see, when you are taking your class, we'll be recording it. We'll bring a video recorder and then record your class. You will become conscious. You may not do things which are normally done by you. You may try to be a little more over smart, probably, or you may be showing more enthusiasm, or you may, some changes will happen. It is not natural. It is not normal. So that kind of a observation is obtrusive observation, whereas unobtrusive is when the person doesn't know that he or she is being observed, he or she is being studied, will not know. Especially in human situations, these are all very important. One has to take into account which one I need to use. Observation in natural or contrived setting, created setting. Disguised versus non-disguised observation. Structured versus unstructured observation. I have decided beforehand what I have to observe. I have created a schedule, and the schedule is the one on which I am observing. See, for example, if I'm observing teaching of a higher education teacher, I would say first point I am observing may be how this teacher entered the classroom, or how this teacher started the lesson. What was the introduction? How this teacher logically sequenced the content. How this teacher illustrated giving examples. How this teacher explained during this class. How this teacher went about questioning